Good morning and good afternoon. I am really excited about today's podcast topic. Today, I have two really interesting guests with a fascinating topic. I have Eric and Neil Billock, and they run a company. Neil owns a company called All Rise AI, which specializes in AI voice agents, AI lead conversion. We're going to talk about it. And as we talk about this, I want you just to think how this might be able to fit into your business. Like, don't be afraid of it. Don't just discount it. Let's learn what the technology can do. Let's see if it can help us, and let's be really well informed. Now, first, I want to bring Eric Billock on, and Eric has a special place in my heart because Eric used to be my production partner back in the day, like 20 years ago. Eric ran my production while I tried to run my branches, and Eric, you were spectacular at it. I stepped out of production completely in 2011 when I was forced out of production to be a non-producing manager. But up until that point, Eric was exceptional, and he went on to be a very accomplished loan officer before joining your brother in the world of lead gen, lead conversion. And so, Eric, welcome.
Thank you, Ron. Good to see
thank you. You have longer hair than when we worked together, but success to all that. And then you work with your brother Neil, whom you work with now, I think, for the better part of 10 years. And your brother is just a fantastic entrepreneur, really cut his teeth in the lead generation business. And how I put it, and I put it naively, is if you were a company and you might go to Neil and go, Neil, I want, so let's say you're a mortgage company or whatever. It could be anything. It could be an insurance company. It could be a law firm. Go, hey, I want to generate 100 deals a month. Can you please generate the leads that I need to get those 100 deals a month? And then Neil would structure, is that a call center? Is it mail out? Is it commercials? Is it social media? Is it display ads? And he would create that funnel for you. And then he would deliver those leads. And what's really interesting, what I love about Eric, what you and Neil do is that, let's say as the consumer, your client, I say, hey, can you get me 100, that equates to 100, closed mortgage deals a month, and you generate enough leads to generate 1,000, you would try to encourage me to take all those leads. But if I didn't want them, I don't want to pay for them, and you can find another buyer, you guys would pop up your own business to fulfill those leads. You're just serial entrepreneurs, what I really love. And now you guys are at the edge of this AI voice lead conversion revolution. You've moved to the middle of the process. And with that, let's bring Neil on. Neil, thanks for coming on today.
There we go. Hey, Ron, how are you?
Good. I am so excited to talk about this because my guess is a lot of the people who will watch this podcast may have never heard of the topic we're talking about and may not be familiar with it. So let's just give them a really basic overview. What does your system do? What is an AI voice agent, and what role does it play in the sales process? Now, I know it can play the entire role, but let's say in the middle of the conversion. What does it do?
Yeah, we built a system. It's an AI contact center and lead management system supporting humans. So there's a big fear out there, right? AI, everybody's afraid of it, how it's going to implement, is it going to replace jobs? At this point, the AI is supporting and bringing on additional bandwidth for human operators, taking away their wait time between calls, et cetera. We can get into the details later, but our system will take leads in through email, SMS, and voice, reach out to a consumer to engage them, ask them qualifying questions, and then connect them with the human to complete the transaction. That's
So if I understand what you're saying, I say as any loan officer in the United States, I could go out and buy a bucket full of leads, and I can dump them into your system and go, hey, can your system please just bring me the ready, willing, and able borrowers, right? And you guys can not only convert them, you can incubate them too, right? Which is really good. And you do this, you said through text and email and voice, but today is primarily voice. Is that correct?
Yeah, the text and email to just drive the calls to the AI. It's used in different capacities, and business owners will, kind of each have their own take on that. But generally, for this conversation and this use case, yes.
And it works whether the leads are coming inbound or whether you're making outbound phone calls. And the success rate's about the same for the same level of lead?
Yeah, it just depends on the data, right? We can't make the data any better or worse than it is. So if you have good quality inbound, you'll see an increased conversion with AI, and if you have good quality or low quality outbound, you're gonna see probably a substantial increase on the outbound side.
Yeah, interesting. And Eric, I'm a natural skeptic of this. I'm a little bit of a cynic on technology, and you really helped me work through that. And one of the things you were telling me is that your voice AI agent oftentimes will have a higher conversion rate than, say, a call center.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that we've seen that to be the case. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And
reasons behind it, but yes.
yeah, and here's what you said is that in a call center, the company spends a ton of time trying to train the sales agents on what to say and the process to follow. And the biggest expense of the call center is they don't do that, where AI voice will do it every single time. Is that right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely going to stick to the script that you give it to stick to, and it's not going to be afraid to ask the questions that, maybe a human might be afraid to ask for some reason, even though they're in the role of sales. Or if you get a little pushback on a rebuttal, the AI is just going to fire back and not hesitate. Where a human might second guess and not want to, how people go when they get a rebuttal. Sometimes they clam up and don't rebut it or handle the objection properly.
And then also the AI model will get better over time as it learns more and more and more. Their performance will get better. Is that right?
Yeah, the AI will increase. I mean, you have to supply it with the feedback. We put guardrails on the AIs so that it's not off saying whatever it wants. So by training it and allowing the humans to train it, it will and can learn. It's not going to learn on its own. We put guardrails on that, and everybody should, and I believe does have guardrails on that, or then we're talking Skynet, Terminator type stuff.
And then, Neil, it surprised me when we were talking earlier, and you were talking about how this system, I mean, not only is it the front of conversion, but it becomes an incubator. And like on a top quality lead, how many times will that voice AI try to contact that client?
Yeah, so the cadences are customizable in our system. We've built a very flexible system that allows businesses, if they have their own workflow they want to put in place, they can. In our background, maybe we should talk about that a little bit before answering that question, is I've got 20 years of operating high volume call centers, 200 plus people. So a new call center starting out might read an MIT study or a Harvard study, and everybody on this call that's used those probably has found what we found, and they're not worth it. So what we're bringing to the table is we have 20 years of experience, millions of leads, millions of phone conversations to build a funnel that is the optimal that we've built, which is 38 outbound calls, 12 outbound SMS, 12 emails. And again, you don't have to use all of it. You can piece together whether you even want to use the SMS or email, and we'll guide you through that. But that contact method seems to be outperforming most. We have some clients that know their leads that are saying, hey, I want to call it once immediately. If they don't answer, call it right back. If they don't answer again, call it in 5 minutes. And then every 3 hours thereafter for 3 days, then take a break and then do it again. So it's very customizable. We don't want to come across that we know everybody's business better than they do. We don't. We're very humble from that perspective. Our job is to implement what you already know are the best practices of your business. And we have a lot of experience, like you mentioned, and I mentioned, to kind of help guide us what works and what doesn't work.
See, that's exciting, because one of the things I think that loan officers and real estate agents have a problem with is their follow-up. They'll try once, twice, 3 times, maybe 3 different day parts, and then they'll give up and they'll put them on a drip campaign, where you're talking about, this person showed interest, I'm going to stay engaged to whatever we think is optimal. But when we were talking about leads before, 38 times in 23 days. That we don't have that type of vigor following up on leads. And I got to believe that gets to a higher conversion than just one and done or three and back kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as a business owner, my call centers in the past and still now, one thing for, the C-suites on the calls or listening today, it's tough to at scale maintaining the level of business operations you wanted or you intended on. Maybe when you were doing it yourself, or if you were doing it yourself, you would want leads called this many times, or if you have leads coming in, you want to know what's going on with your leads, meaning that they're getting statused in your CRM appropriately, which was the biggest frustration for you, any of you brokers on the call. Please status your leads correctly, because it allows us as business owners to then buy the leads correctly or know where our ROI is coming from and build our systems better. Anyway, with all of that being said, the AI does it the same way every single time. So even, for brokers, it'll really let you know if you're buying your own leads, what you can get out of them. Will really help you cut down on the time you're wasting on dialing a phone and waiting for somebody to answer as well. And on the C-suite side, it's just consistency, which has become my favorite part of AI.
Yeah, and when we talk about a voice agent, does the voice sound human? I mean, how does it sound today, and what's the technology? How quickly is it evolving?
Yeah, I mean, the evolution of this is, what I say is every 2 weeks, it seems like it jumped a year from what we would have thought a few years ago. There's companies that came out in 8 months ago, 9 months ago, whatever the time frame is now, where it started to get deployed, that are already obsolete because the voices and the language model processing is just jumping light years very quickly. So the voices sound good. They sound much better than they did 8 months ago. And there's some newer released voices that have come out here in the last month or so that, I mean, you're having a hard time determining if they're human or not. And then it's just going to continue to evolve from there to get even better.
Yeah, I mean, the language is incredible, and the back and forth, it seems very human. It just, when I listen to it, sometimes it's absent the human emotion inflections, but I'm sure that's changing.
Yeah, it's been changing, and it's coming little by little. By little, it's still quite rapid. By the end of the year, I would expect you to not really be able to tell it all. And then, gosh, in a year from now, end of next year, it's going to sound like us talking on this call.
Wow. And it already sounds pretty human, just doesn't have the full emotion in the voice.
Right.
And you were saying something really fascinating earlier about, using multiple layers of AI as backups, just like we do for our telephones or for internet. And can you explain that? Because it's so fascinating.
Yeah. So, I just like when you're running your own operation now, you have I always recommend having multiple internet service providers or ISPs. Why? Because if one goes down, you're going to be stuck twiddling your thumbs. Same thing with the old telecom when we were running old analog lines. Now and I've seen a pitfall of companies where they've come out with their own large language model and their own voices, and that sounds great. But what happens when they go down? It's tech. It's gonna break. So just like, AT&T service lines or whoever it may be, they go down all the time. So those companies have pretty much become obsolete at this point. And what we've done to overcome that is just think of us as like a API centralized location. Our system connects with every large language model out there that's worth anything. There's about around 10. Any voice synthesizer that is available that's worth its salt. There's about 8 or 9 of those. And then any speech to text companies. And the reason we do that is OpenAI, and you guys using it, ChatGPT, I've had experience where it takes a little longer, or I've logged in and it's been down. You can't have that in your call center. And we identified that very early on, again, just from our expertise. So we built a system to where if OpenAI is down, it'll fall over to, let's say, Grok or whatever the case may be on the large language model side. And if I'm need to get into what those and all those pieces fit in together, I can. And on the voice synthesizing side, if 11 Labs is down, maybe we go to Play HD or one of the others.
So you're building a really reliable model with a lot of redundancy, so you're never down, and you're open 24/7. Is that right?
Yep, 24/7.
We didn't chat about this, and Eric, you might be a good one on feedback, and I'll bring this up, and then we're going to get into some case studies. But one of the growing segments in the mortgage origination business is using borrower intelligence or customer intelligence. And that's using predictive analytics to tell us when a customer is ready to either buy a house or to refinance the house. Really, really elegant technologies are developing, really firm signals. It seems like it would be such a good marriage to take those signals that we're getting from those technologies from our CRM and then marry that to, the type of, AI voice conversion process that you guys have. What do you think?
Is that in your wheelhouse, Eric, or do you want me to take that?
Yeah, no, you go for it. Ron always gives me some good ones.
That's great.
I mean, it's absolutely there for sure.
Yeah.
The automation, absolutely.
Yeah, we ran into several companies at LeadsCon and Affiliate Summit East that are doing kind of the old school. I come from originally the direct mail background where we'd buy trigger data and send a direct mail offer. Now you're getting that on the internet side where people are searching, get a loan here. And even if they don't click on your ad, there's cookies, and I forget exactly what they're calling them now, that big data companies are able to acquire to give you that signal that somebody's looking. Then you can get into, determining how to market to that, whether it's via AI voice or AI SMS or email or human, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, really. I think that has a lot of potential in the future because as that predictive analytics, those signals get better, whether we're eavesdropping on their social media or on their search engines, and they're using keywords that we know lead to, interest in purchase or refi, those would be great to be incubated by, possibly by a voice AI agent versus a person. Now, when I say that too, this brings me up to my next question. When your system, when your voice AI agent does an outbound phone call or receives an inbound phone call, does it say it's an AI assistant? What's the protocol there?
Yeah, I do want to touch on one thing I skipped before I answer that is with the FCC one-to-one consent coming out here in January, there is a layer that you're going to have to involve before just acquiring the data and reaching out to them to make it compliant, which is probably targeting them on social media or something like that so they acquire your ad. I'm sorry, repeat the second question again.
I will, but when we go back to the borrower intelligence or customer intelligence,
Yep.
Remember that we're largely tracking our own consumers. So we already have a relationship with them. So
Yeah.
we have some protection there. But going back, my question was, if I call in and your platform receives my call, does it let me know it's an AI assistant or not?
On inbound calls, actually currently, as of the state of regulations right now, it does not have to. There are some industries where they prefer that. We really leave it. Actually, I won't even take that a little bit more granular. There are some business owners that prefer it and some that don't. So as long as it's compliant, which it is right now, then we don't have to. Really, it's a preference.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And in checking out, I've been able to kind of, you guys have given me some samples. I've gone to your website, allriseai.com, where you have 4 examples of how your AI voice agents work. It seems like sometimes they say, hey, I'm calling on behalf of Ron. I'm his AI assistant. I want to help you with XYZ, kind of thing. And sometimes it doesn't. But if the customer asks you, hey, are you a human? It never lies. Is that right?
No, that is part of the regulations. It does have to say it. And, in the mortgage space, particularly if you're making outbound calls or taking inbound calls on the broker side, you're typically not saying it's an AI. However, supporting a processor, then that might be something where you come out and say, hey, I'm so-and-so's AI assistant, and it'll go a little bit smoother.
Perfect. And then, you know what, I want to look at a couple of case studies. Eric, I'm going to start with you. And I don't want to get bogged down in the weeds. I want to think big picture. But when you and I first started talking about this 6 months ago or something, you had mentioned how you were working with a real estate company, and the guy, I think, and my numbers aren't perfect, but it's directionally correct. The guy was buying about 250, not low grade, but not high grade leads. So, give it a B ranking. And he was only calling on 80 of them, but it was generating like 90% of his business. And so it was pretty good. And you were going, hey, look, Mr. Agent, first, I can get a higher conversion rate than you. And second, I'll call all 250, not just 80. And then I'll have a much more comprehensive follow-up system. And so you were trying to convince this person who was a potential client, you could get them an exponential result if they turn that over to you. Did I understand that right? Is that kind of like your vision?
Yeah, and for colleagues of his, that were, like very followers of hitting heavy amounts of outbound dials, and tons of hours a day and a week, beating the phones and not, getting beat up and getting worn down by being on the phones and things of that nature. It was. So yes to that answer, but we also looked at, other things he was doing and other people in his office that were doing heavier outbound dials, with like hitting 7,000 records a month, and how many hours they were spending on the phones a month and how much they were getting out of it, and they could, have the AI handle that for them, and then, use those hours to, however they wanted to use those hours, go out after a different marketing tactic, or go knock on doors or whatever the case was that they want to do, or just go golfing or whatever. It's to free up more time using the AI.
Yeah, I love that. So not only can they get a higher conversion rate, but that they could, get back some of their hours and apply it to higher dollar activity. That's a really good point. And when you were telling me this, my immediate motivation was, oh, I can open a real estate company. Send me those leads. I can take care of that. And then Neil, one of the things I think that one of the AI voice agent, systems that you've done a really good job building is in the home services. And that is where it's more of an AI assistant to like a self-employed business owner who might be the only person in his business and struggles with setting appointments and converting sales. Can you this is so exciting and interesting. Can you kind of just explain what all that is, let's say for a roofer?
Yeah, it works really great. We've had a lot of success on the realtor side, which, obviously with good relationships helps brokers as well, individual brokers as well. We even have a guaranteed we'll drop your handicap by 3 strokes program. I'm kidding. But
I need that program.
The inbound calls, it's just a matter of, you're on the job. Right? You can't answer every call as an individual, or even a smaller operation, or, even large operations have this issue where you're taking inbound calls, or if you're getting inbound calls from leads, from referrals, from callbacks, from outreach that you've made, and you're on the phone and you're like, okay, do I answer? What do? I don't have somebody available. The AI can come in, ask the qualifying questions, see if it's somebody that you need to talk to. If an agent's available, transfer it to them. If not, schedule an appointment. If it's after hours, scheduling appointments. The big thing as a sole prop, or, any operation where you're running thin on people, you're going to get callbacks at hours that you don't have people there unless you're operating 24/7 with abundant staff. And if you're operating with abundant staff, that means you have abundant expenses that you could look to repurpose for, benefit of the business. So having the AI definitely as an overflow, or definitely on that side, is a major lift.
So this is a really common thing. Let's say I'm a roofer, and you can replace that roofer, plumber, home inspector, insurance. You can replace whatever the discipline. But I'm a roofer, and I make my money by going out there and putting roofs on homes. But I need business, so I run an ad put an ad on my bus stop or on my shopping cart or in my penny saver, wherever they run an ad. But there's no way in the world I'm going to answer the phone. I'm on top of the roof laying tile. And so that inbound phone call comes in, the AI voice agent answers the call, goes through a series of qualifying questions. What are you looking for? A roof surf, a repair, a new roof, and then leads the customer to go ahead and schedule an appointment. Go ahead and schedule an appointment, and we'll send out, our professional roofing team to meet with you. And then that's how that roofer can set up. They can totally fill their calendar with new business with not having to sit at their desk. And this AI voice agent does a great job, right? And you have actually some statistics or data on how well this works for somebody like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's 10xing business for our clients that are using it in that capacity. And, to 10x, that sounds like a big number for any larger scale operations listening. But to 10x a sole prop or a small business doesn't take, a ton typically, a ton of new jobs. And anyway, that being said, you mentioned calendar. We integrate into your calendar. So it knows if you're going to the gym or if you got to pick up the kids or whatever the case may, or God forbid you want to take a vacation, have some time off to yourself. The AI can work around that. And literally these people are just working with full schedules, where before, like you said, they couldn't answer a call for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And that could have been 2 to 3 or more potential leads, and you can exponentialize that based on your own businesses for those listening. But yeah, it's a major lift.
And where do you see this technology? Where is it today? And how prevalent is it, and how prevalent it will be in the future? Like, let's say you're a skeptic, like, hey, you know what? I'm going to make my own calls. Like, what's the argument that you should use this technology? You shouldn't be afraid of this technology, and it's the future. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's coming. It's here. It's here now. There's proper use cases for it now. It's in the next year and a half, you're going to see it, spreading like wildfire, like whether we like it or not. And I was one of the first skeptics when ChatGPT hit. We were running a BPO in the mass tort and single event legal space for attorneys. And I saw it and I was like, I don't really want to use it. And, all of a sudden I'm running an AI company because we saw the benefits in it. But it's maximizing your time. I think people are afraid of, I'm going to get replaced by AI. And that's not really the goal. The goal of the AI is to maximize your human resources. So if you have a 100-person shop or a 10-person shop and you're dialing out, if you're finger dialing, you have a ton of, downtime. Even if your guys are only making 500 calls in a day, and they have a 30-second wait time between each person they can connect with, even if that person's like, buzz off, I don't want to talk to you. That's 250 minutes. That's 4 hours out of an 8-hour workday that's being wasted on dead time. It doesn't sound like a lot. 30 seconds, you look on your floor and you think they're optimizing, 30 seconds. They're doing a great job. Well, with AI, there is, you can eliminate that wait time. Well, maybe not eliminate it, but take it down to 10 seconds because it still has to find people and connect them to you. But take it down to where your guys aren't, or gals are not wasting their time on fundamental tasks that aren't producing revenue for the business. Anybody who's doing this on a smaller scale, or not a smaller scale, but individually, your time is everything to you. It's all you have. So you really got to maximize it. So there's, great use cases. I would say don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. Your competitors are embracing it, or are going to if they haven't. So it's just a matter of finding the right use case for your business and how it can best support you.
And you bring up an interesting point, because if I understand from you, Eric, your system can take unlimited leads in. Like, your system has no technical restriction or capacity restriction. The restriction is how much can go out the backside of the pipe, right? Like, you might be able to generate 1 million leads for me, but if I can only deal with 1 lead an hour, that makes no sense. and which really then starts to speak to the return on the investment. And both of you speak to this quite a bit. But Neil, if I was listening to this, I'm a loan officer, or I'm a real estate agent, and I'm kind of interested. What are some of the parameters that would make it worth it for me to use it? Like it would be the quality of the lead, conversion, and maybe even what's the cost structure. If you can just kind of go through the whole, theory of the ROI.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something where we guide our clients. We don't take everyone that we talk to, or we don't, try to sell everyone that we talk to, and we don't take all business. I'm in a position financially where I've had a very large exit in my life. I'm looking for long-term relationships. I don't have to shortcut to grab business. So we've taken that and we work from an honest and integrable position where we're going to have a conversation with you. If it's the right fit, we'll tell you. If it's not the right fit, we'll tell you why we think so. And based on our experience, why we would not want to take, business. But we will. There's, high converting leads. The AI is amazing for whether they're inbound, whether they're outbound, doesn't matter. It just helps reduce that wait time, qualifies leads, transfers them to the closer to convert from there. Eventually, like I talked to Ron about before this call, AI will be able to and can now complete an entire loan application and deliver that. We'll get into that maybe later, but kind of from there, I lost my train of thought.
So let's go to what's the cost? Like, and is your cost structure the same as your competitors? Is it per lead, per user? What about?
Everybody has a little bit different approach to how they price it. At the end of the day, there's how it works on the back end. Let me give you, it all comes down to the cost per minute is what we try to figure it out to. Now we break it down into 15-second increments to help offset costs, anywhere from 5 cents per 15 seconds to 7 cents on our off-the-shelf products, which are month-to-month, by the way. We don't believe in contracts on month-to-month or on our out-of-the-box programs. Hey, if we can't perform, find somebody else, or we're not going to lock you in. We have bundled packages where it's $500 includes, you're putting me on the spot and I don't have it in front of me, but like 1,500 minutes, or $5,000 includes 20,000 minutes. It's just pre-bought minutes, right? So, from there, the costs for the companies that are doing it, they're all the same. There's a cost to go to a large language model, which interprets the words the client says, and it's predicting what to say next and phrases what to convey to the consumer. Again, we put guardrails on that so that it's not going off into left field saying crazy things. The guardrails of how we're operating versus some that aren't, keep it to where you can deliver kind of a flow. If you had your script and it was written, step 1, do this, step 2, step 3, and on. We structure our AI to do that in a conversational way, right? You don't want it to be read this static script just like you kind of tell your people. So it has it conversate a little bit more than that.
You know what's interesting? I attended Housing Wire AI conference a couple months ago, where they had the CIOs, CTOs of most of the top mortgage companies and some of the top real estate companies, and they were talking about these voice agents. And the general feeling from most of the CIOs, CTOs were that they didn't want to trust the voice agent with their current customers because it still made mistakes, and they didn't want to jeopardize their relationship. But they would probably be okay deploying it on future customers that they hadn't yet acquired. Really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And would you agree with that strategy, or you would say it doesn't matter? It's perfecting so quickly; it's going to be, a part, of our business.
Yeah, it comes down to training the agent right, and this is a mistake we've seen a lot of companies make. Eric, do you want to talk to that one? Because you're on the forefront of the mistakes the companies are making in the training of their agents.
I'm just trying to think of the one client that was trying to get it to do too many different things on a phone call, and so it can have a tendency to trip it up. I mean, we figured out a solve for that on how we build out the agents. But if the use case I'm thinking of was somebody who's just using it for a law firm, and it was a general reception. It handled after hours phone calls, so it was inbound calls, and it would see, are you an insurance company? Are you a law firm? Are you an existing client? Are you a new client? If you're a new client, is it this kind of case or that kind of case or this kind of case? And so it was throwing a lot at the AI that was kind of tripping it up. But we figured out how to build teams of agents to support the different ways that call could go. Trying to think of some other ones.
Yeah, I mean, on that premise, where I was kind of going with that is what the big thing I've seen where companies stumble a little bit, and whether it's the company they're using the AI for or the actual client, mortgage company in this case, let's say, is they don't expect to set up an AI agent and it's going to work perfectly right out of the gate. You need to treat this AI agent like it's which very well can be the most important agent you've ever hired, by spot checking calls, listening to calls, providing feedback to the AI company that you're working with to update and tweak it, and really truly testing it. It works like any other agent. You hire them, you train them, you role play with them, you put them on the phones, you then further train them until you get to a point where they're professional enough to be let go. That's where it fails. Now, I'm not putting this on, the CIOs or CTOs that you were talking about, because it might be on the AI companies not relating that or not having the right processes in place. What Eric's talking about specifically, that example, is to solve for an AI. Because if you do try to get an AI agent, let's say, and I'm going to exaggerate here, to try and sell tires, to try and enroll somebody in debt relief, sell mortgages, and sell washing machines, it's going to say random stuff. So what we've done for companies that do have multiple products or multiple cases, like Eric's saying, is we build a team of agents, so that, like I'll use his example. So when they call him the one agent will only be trained on determining if it's a new client, an existing client, a lawyer, or whatever the case, insurance company. And once it hits that and makes that decision, it forwards the call. It doesn't actually forward the call, but it forwards the call, I think, workflow, where it just kind of follows a PowerPoint presentation to ensure that that's kind of going back to guide rails that I was talking about earlier. We really fine tune each step of the process without me going over that.
One of the CEOs, the example they shared, I can't remember if it was New Res or it was a big company, and they were beta testing a voice AI assistant in the incubation phase, and I'm getting this slightly wrong, but it's mostly right. The AI was talking to the client. The client said, "No, my wife just died, and we're paralyzed right now." And the AI just kept going through a script, like completely ignored that didn't respond. And so it's the nuances like that, I think, that scare companies.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some bad actors out there. There's I don't want to badmouth anybody, but Air AI. There's companies that just put a bad rap. They try to go to market too big, too quick. They tried selling what the AI shouldn't be doing yet. Again, that's where, because of my past businesses and where I am, financially and personally, we don't take those, we don't push those risks. We push what the AI can do, and we will tell you what it can. And there's no need to try and do stuff 2 years from now. That will be there. You don't have to do it today if you're using it, because it's going to scare people away, like you're saying. But unfortunately, there's some bad actors out there that I would highly recommend you really research who you're going to work with.
This is a really good segue to compliance. There's all sorts of news, the TCPA changing, the SEC changing rules, the new legislation working its way through Congress on voice assistants. How does what you do? How do you navigate all that? How do you help protect your clients? How big of a deal is this?
Yeah, so we're pretty on top of FCC, TCPA type regulations, rule changes that are coming out. For instance, the one-to-one consent rule coming out. I touched on earlier. I think that's end of January of this coming year. Earlier this year, on February 8th, the FCC came out and said that AI, using buzzwords here, AI voices now identify as artificial or pre-recorded voice. Then just 3 weeks ago, I think it was August 8th, the FCC said there might be some regulations on outbound dialing, and they put some proposed changes that they're talking about, asking for feedback. So we're watching that, keeping an eye on what may or may not be coming, to be aware of that. When it comes to industries, we're so vertically agnostic in the industries that we work in. We really want to make sure we let our clients know that the liability on your business is going to be on your side. It's your job to let us know of change. We don't want to take on the responsibility or liability of trying to keep up with 100 different verticals that we operate in. So it's just open communication, open dialogue. It's very easy for us to make adjustments. At least thus far, we haven't seen an adjustment that took more than a couple hours to accommodate. To the point in legal, there's HIPAA and PI, personal information rules that you have to be aware of. And we have in our system that for those type of cases, we don't record the call, we don't store the data, we don't maintain the transcripts. That all goes with the company on the back end.
And you described this to me before. There's an element where if I'm a mortgage company and I go out and acquire leads, it's for me to make sure the compliance is correct between me and that lead provider. And you support that, but that you're not the governor of it, and that really you see your product as like same as like a Salesforce or a CRM, except for in your technology, you're just working on the conversion rate, but you're honoring the compliance, underlying compliance, and not really necessarily, like you say, you're agnostic to it. We just support what you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in the mortgage world, think of us as one of your brokers. Right? We're going to perform the work you want us to perform, but it's your job as my boss or owner, or if I'm independent, whatever, you get it, to make sure that we're following the rules.
Yeah, perfect. So Eric, if you were out selling to or advising a real estate company or a mortgage company, regardless of the model, whether it was a bank or IMB or a broker, what would you consult them? How would you tell them? Why would you tell them they need to use your system?
I mean, typically what we're telling people is just crawl, walk, run with it, right? Like, what's the first way that you feel comfortable trying to implement it into getting your feet wet with it? I mean, we're working with a mortgage company right now where, he simply wants it to just help with their contact rate, get the client on the phone and transfer. There's no questions that it's, asking if they're interested. Just help with the contact rate, so they don't have to. Say that again.
Just acting as a dialer, essentially.
You could say that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, hell, my brother probably talked about how. I mean, that's what they did in their call center when they first implemented the AI. I mean, what we built, they built for their own internal use, and then after that, expanded it, beta tested it with clients they had, and then fully went SaaS, software company, and they're now in the AI space. But I mean, again, I'd probably say to start it on the sales side, use it for, like we see a lot of our clients just handling inbound calls or making some outbound dials. Most people start with inbound, push calls to it, let it ask, a few qualifying questions, and then transfer that over to the loan officer to finish out the sales process.
Yeah, perfect.
That's the way
No,
to do it.
Neil, did you freeze? Oh, you're
Oh,
back.
no, sorry, I didn't hear it. You broke up there a little bit.
I said, how would you answer that question? How would if I was if somebody from a real estate company or mortgage company was listening, how could they best use your product, and when would be the time to get in? Should they wait until it gets better, or is now the time?
Yeah, I mean, the time, I mean, it depends on what you want to do with your bottom line. I mean, it's working now. It's working. It's easy we've built it to where it's easy to get in and try, right? There's no long-term commitment. If it works, keep using it. If it doesn't, you wasted a little bit of time and money trying it, but we don't really run into that very often, if at all yet, actually. So with that, I agree. Crawl, walk, run is what we tell everybody. Don't try and conquer the world. Get in. Outbound dialing, we will 3x your outbound dialing that you're doing with humans right now. No questions asked. I'll give a couple little nuggets here that whether you use us or not, there's a couple of tools you should be using. Not using outboundani.com. outboundani.com. We're unrelated completely from them. They are a company that makes sure you're using the best DID, the best caller ID to be calling out on for a call. And it's not just having local presence, which is something that you should also have, but there's other things that they do. Like if, for instance, you're in, let's say, California, and you're calling from a 714 number to a 619 number, there might be a problem in that delivery of those calls. They will reroute that call through a different DID to get in. So they will increase your contact rates. That's one. There's another company called Neustar, Neustar.com, I believe is their website. And they do spam mitigation, but in a capacity where we had 3,000 different DIDs that we were calling out on at any given time. We only had to replace 2 in a year, and we were doing high volume of calls. And then the only other thing kind of to kind of touch on there is what really helped our call center increase our outbound reach is we eliminated our abandon rate. So when you're making outbound dials, and let's just use one agent, for example. If 2 calls connect, well, that agent can only answer 1 call. Well, it'll abandon the other call, and the carriers hate that. So it throttles in your dialer how many dials you're able to make out per agent. So what we did is what we do now for our clients is we point those to the AI. So you have no abandoned calls, and the AI can qualify and send it back. You could do this if you don't use AI just to an internal IVR you have in your phone system. Those tools alone maximized our outbound reach substantially. And then, as Eric was talking about, in our BPO, we had the AI routed we programmed in our dialer. Any call that came back went to the AI to qualify before going to the human. So it made your outbound guys a powerhouse. I mean, it envisioned what you all think of as in a call center of boom, 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 to what's reality, where it's boom, you talk and you hang up and you're waiting for 30 seconds for a call. It changes that mentality completely. So again, the AI can really support a lot of that from the abandon rate and the return call rate. And then those other tools are things that we encourage all of our clients to get to maximize.
Yeah, interesting. I've had opportunity to run call center teams before, and we use local area presence, but it was super expensive, and they charged by the state. Are you saying it's outbound AI that will facilitate that local area presence through their technology?
No, their technology will help choose which one of your DIDs to use, or ANIs, I believe they're called. How our system works within the AI perspective is you'll have your own Twilio account. Let's say there's several carriers, but let's say Twilio, they're the 800-pound gorilla. You'll have your own Twilio account, sub-account under our parent account, which allows us to manage and do everything. So we will acquire X amount of numbers based on the area codes that you want to call. outbound AI will pull from that block if 714 is not working well. Maybe switch to an 858 to go that route and deliver. It's a 20% lift on contact rate.
Yeah, that's great. And we were talking about pricing before. One of the things, can you clarify what if I get charged by the minute? What does that include? Because it doesn't include the phone call. It only includes the engagement. Is that right?
Yeah, it doesn't charge for dial time. It's if the consumer is speaking or the AI is speaking, that engagement period, that's what's billed, and it's in 15-second increments instead of a minute.
And so that could either be speaking directly to the consumer, or it could be leaving a voicemail. That's correct. Somebody speaking. That's when the clock starts ticking.
Yeah, it could be. And if we are live transferring, which we generally do in the mortgage space, to a closer, the time cuts off at transfer.
Yeah, perfect. And that's where the ROI is really, dominated by the strength of the lead. It's because how many times do you have to make the outbound phone call that you're burning up engagement time, which if you're calling 28 times or whatever it is in 23 days and you leave 25 voicemails, each of them at 15 seconds, well, you've just burned through all that time. And if it had a really low conversion rate at the end, it may not be worth it. But you walk your clients through that. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll go through use case by use case to see kind of where it makes sense. If it's better to do outbound via the way I was just talking about through your human dialer, or if for the AI to take it over, we'll gauge and figure out what's best client by client.
And what if this sounds great? Let's say I'm a small operator, I'm a really small real estate company, or I'm a small mortgage company. And I go, this sounds great, but where the heck do I get the leads from? With your vast experience in lead gen, can you advise your clients or connect your clients to those?
Yeah, so we've become a mini marketplace, if you will. We work a lot with lead providers that I don't know how they're going to morph into the one-to-one consent, but at this point, a lot of lead providers that we dial out on their behalf that are selling leads to mortgage companies, maybe they're pay per call, whatever the case, or live transfers. And then we also obviously work on the buyer side, we call it, on the mortgage broker side. So where we won't help generate leads, we're at Affiliate Summit, we're at LeadsCon, we're at this pay per call conference this week. We're connected to just about every and any lead source out there.
Great. And then as we start to wrap up, how do people engage you? If somebody was listening today and say, I really want to learn more about this, or I have this lead flow that I'm not converting well with, or I'm not converting my database the way I should be, or I'm getting these predictive analytics signals that I'm not doing anything with, how would somebody engage you guys? And I've seen that we've scrolled your website a couple times. Is that the best way?
Yeah, you go to allriseai.com, or maybe reach out to Eric that's ERIC at allriseai.com. And we'll set up a call and kind of go through a flow. There's an online form that you can fill out on the site to book a demo or to Eric handles the flow, so maybe I should let him talk to that. How's that flow work, Eric?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I would just go online, listen to some of the recordings on there. There are live redacted calls, so you can kind of get a feel for the voice that's there, and then you can check out the pricing page, and if everything is of interest, you fill out our web form, it'll come to us, and we'll reach out and book a call with you.
And you have a handful of demos on your website too, right? If you're curious what it sounds like.
That's what I'm saying. Yep.
And you're happy to give them, a live number to go through a real life, experiment or example if they wanted, correct?
Yep. Yeah, we have some mortgage demos set up. So depending on the use case, we can give them a live number to call in. The demos, like I said, the ones that are online, we put them up a month and a half ago. They're already ancient from the versions that have come out. We can't even keep up with updating the website with how updated the tech is and how good it's coming. So we do have some even better voices than what you'll hear.
Oh, that's great. It's incredible. And Eric, as we talk about updating, I think you've been lugging that surfboard around for the better part of 18 years in your background. And how I have to tell you this, it's very ironic that, I guess now about 15 years ago, you essentially were my assistant that took all my leads. Like you were my voice AI assistant. And now 15 years later, it's the same thing, just a different angle, right? I really appreciate you both, opening our eyes to it. I'm gonna give you both a chance for final comments, but once again, my intent today is just to bring an awareness of all the ways that technology is evolving, and just to encourage everybody, let's just not discount these things. Let's learn about it strategically, figure out how we might deploy it, how it can make us better, not replace us, how it's going to make us more efficient, do more business. The whole point of the whole direction the industry is going is thinner margins, thinner margins, thinner margins. And so we have to be more productive, far more productive, to be able to meet the consumer demand. And tools like this can help us be more productive. If you can somehow use these technologies to do 10 loans a month instead of 2 loans a month, then good for you. And that's really what my encouragement is explore these things. With that, Eric, any final thoughts as we wrap up?
No, just that I'll talk to you on the other side because I got to jump to a call here and talk to somebody about coming on board.
Fantastic. Neil, how about you? And both of you guys, I appreciate your time today. Neil, any final thoughts?
Yeah, thanks for having us on, Ron. It was a great conversation. Yeah, look, it's coming. It's here. We don't charge to have the conversations. It's month-to-month billing, path of least resistance to get it up and try it. I get the hesitations. There are a lot of bad actors out there, so I encourage you to, make sure you are working with the right company. We believe we are that right company. If anybody's saying that they'll just sign you up without a conversation, that they don't have you in their best interest, and watch out for that. But yeah, it is coming. It's here. It is something to embrace how you can use it. And it's probably time to start thinking about it now because your competitors will. I mean, there's already AI conferences, AI mortgage conferences, they're here. So let's figure out how we can use it best for you.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you both. If you want to just hang on a second, but let's wrap this up. Thanks, guys. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for checking this out.
Thank you.